Yeah, we are back, y'alls. We're back. Some of you have been away maybe too long, but you're back.
Butter.
Yep, you came back to the Solomon Project, where it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep that counts. I'm your host, Richard Burns. There's a whole lot going on out there. So far, I've been right, so far, about some of the things I don't want to say predicted. Let's say predicted. So I've been right so far. There are a few other things that I mentioned that I was expecting. We're headed in that direction. We're headed in that direction. There's commentary from loved ones and friends. They're saying they can't do that, but they're doing it. They can't do that. Right, but they are doing it. And they're getting away with it too. Oh, just give it time. Not the way things are exchanging between the groups that I'm thinking about, that I'm not mentioning specifically. The way the exchanges are going about doesn't give me the impression that anyone is going to suffer consequences when in the past they would have. But that's not happening now. This is the state of Montana, y'alls. So I exited Washington State yesterday. And very interesting, I got a little something for the truckers out there. Or for the brand new truckers, or for people who have no idea what truckers go through. I went to a facility to pick up something, and I don't even know what that something is. And the reason why I don't know what that something is number one, drivers are not allowed inside the warehouse to monitor the loading process. And number two, the paperwork is loaded with a bunch of numbers in association with the product. But there's no description of the product, just numbers. Whoever's receiving these products, or whoever's receiving this product, they're gonna know. But if the authorities were to ask me what I have on my trailer, I wouldn't know what to answer. I wouldn't know what to say. No clue whatsoever. If that authority figure, or if that officer decides that they want to check, well, they have the authority to break the seal, because there's a seal on there, the seal on the doors, and they can break the seal and check to see what's in the trailer. When I arrive at the receiver and have no seal on the door, I'm gonna need information from the officer so that the receiver can call and confirm, because if not, they can reject the entire load. And I don't know how much this load is worth. This load could be worth anywhere from $50,000 to $5 million. I don't know what's in there, so I don't know. Some loads can be very expensive. Another thing is that this is a refrigerated facility, and in some refrigerated facilities, you back into the dock door with your trailer doors closed. Yes, closed. They open it from inside. Which means that once they're done, they close the door, they seal the door, you pull away, and because you don't close the doors yourself, you can't gauge where to slide your tandems up to. They want your tandems all the way to the rear, and there's a reason for that. When the forklift goes into your trailer and comes off your trailer, if your tandems aren't all the way to the back, the trailer is not going to be at an even height with the dock. It may be lower by a good amount, maybe a few inches, and while the trailer is lower, every time that forklift goes in and out, and those forklifts are heavy, every time the forklift goes in and out, it'll be bouncing all over the place. And sometimes the product even falls off the pallets from all the bouncing, which would increase the amount of time it takes to load the trailer. So they have you slide your tandems to the back. Now, when you pull away from the door, if the driver has to close the doors, he can take a look inside the trailer and see how far back the pallets are, and he can get somewhat of an understanding as to how far forward the tandems need to be to have the correct weight distribution. Because don't forget, there's a certain amount of weight allowed depending on what part of the trailer it is. In the back, where you have your tandems in the back, if you have 2 axles, then the maximum weight allowed for those 2 axles is 34,000 pounds. And toward the front of the trailer, which sits on top of the tractor, you have 2 axles there as well, and the maximum weight allowed on those 2 axles is again 34,000 pounds. And then the maximum amount of weight allowed on the front axle, which they call your steers, your steer axles, the maximum weight there is 12,000 pounds. And if you add it up, it adds up to 80,000 pounds total. When you pull away from the door and you have to close the doors yourself, you can gauge more or less just how far forward you want your rear axles to be, your tandem axles. You're just guesstimating, because once you leave the facility, if they don't offer a scale for you to get on, you're going to have to find the nearest scale before you get to a weigh station, because they're going to want to make sure that the weight is distributed properly. Sometimes you don't find a scale where you can weigh and adjust your tandems before you get to a weigh station, but that's a whole different conversation. So there are a lot of things going on. I want to be wrong. Let's be clear. I want to be wrong. I have not been wrong yet. I've been describing what's going to happen and somewhat as to how it's going to happen. What I didn't mention was how long it would take for it to happen. That I didn't opine. But it's unfortunate, but we are We're just about there. We're just about there. I don't know. I really don't know. Okay, so here's one piece of advice. You have to do an attitude adjustment on your own if you want to make it. I'm not talking about financially. You're going to have to do an attitude adjustment. Understand that law enforcement will now have full immunity. Do you know what that means? Do you know what full immunity means? So full immunity means that whatever they decide to do, whatever they think is necessary, whether you end up incarcerated or unalive, incarcerated innocently or unalive, you won't be able to hold them accountable through the court system. That's what that means. So, if in the past you were pulled over and you weren't doing anything wrong, but you got pulled over and you wanted to flex and show that you know your rights, it may not end well for you. What it comes down to is just follow orders. If they tell you to pull your window down, you pull your window down. If they ask you for your license and registration and insurance, just hand it to them. Asking them why you were pulled over to try to demonstrate that you know your rights, like I said, that can end badly for you. If law enforcement shows up at a scene and they're giving orders, and you're distracted or something's going on and you're not following orders, that could be the last order you ever hear. And again, the law enforcer will not be held accountable, not by the courts. They will not be held accountable. Yeah, people hear about all these lawsuits against certain agencies, like for the Department of Justice. Folks, listen, the Department of Justice is part of the executive branch, and they're the ones that enforce the law, but they're enforcing it the way they interpret it. And they've already demonstrated on many occasions that their interpretation can be different from the Supreme Court's interpretation. And the Department of Justice has followed through with their interpretation. Something to keep in mind. that there are lawsuits against the Department of Justice, that there are lawsuits against other departments for this, that, and the third. Don't deny what the outcomes are. Don't deny what the outcomes are. Like I said in the beginning of the video, yes, there are people that will be saying they're not supposed to do that, or they can't do that because of whatever reason they're saying. It's still being done. It's still being done. Let me see. Let me have a look at something. I think that's good enough. Yeah, I think one piece of advice that I would give, and the reason why I'm giving this piece of advice is my father was a member of government in another country that was authoritarian. And things were handled in a way that people here are not prepared for. They're not prepared. And I'm afraid that some people are going to disappear because they're not going to know how to act. They are not going to know how to act. Stay fresh, y'all. Keep it profitable. And I'm going to have a special treat for you guys on Whip It Out Wednesday. You're going to absolutely love this. Another excuse killer. Kitty, come on over.
Arabam Dacia, seviyorum çift kalem aça. Göremedi kimseden fayda. İşler